Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Ramsden. I'm a BitcoinDevKit Foundation grantee and have been working on BDK for a couple years now, thanks to grants from BitcoinDevKit Foundation and previous to that, grants from Spiral. So thanks to Spiral and BitcoinDevKit Foundation. So I maintain BDK FFI with ThunderBiscuit, and since I've been an iOS engineer for a chunk of my career, I'm also the maintainer of BDK Swift and the BDK iOS wallet. ThunderBiscuit covered BDK FFI really well in a recent tech talk, so I'll try to touch on some different things here, and we'll focus on the BDK iOS wallet. I'll show some of the functions we use as we walk through the UI and the UX of the wallet, which shows how an end user might use BDK for their native iOS app. BDK Wallet has a tagline that it's aiming to be the simplest way to integrate Bitcoin wallet features into any application. The BDK FFI repo is a Rust codebase that generates language bindings for developers working on a native iOS or Android mobile app. I think this was actually one of the initial things Steve was trying to do when he started his repo, was he was hoping to build out a mobile Bitcoin wallet. And so the bindings are an integral part of this ability. If you're an iPhone app developer and Swift is the language from Apple to make native apps, you can just use a Swift library generated from the FFI codebase to make your Bitcoin wallet. You don't really even have to know that it was generated from a Rust codebase or anything, and you just import BDK Swift into your Xcode project like any other library. So we're going to look at the BDK Swift example wallet. As of today, iOS is on iOS 18, that's the latest version, and then this wallet is on BDK 1.0. So we'll highlight some of the code used and start by just talking about the viewpoint the app is being built from. So it's descriptive, not prescriptive. But the highlights of the example wallet are to create a wallet, to send and receive Bitcoin on any of the test networks, and some cool additional features like NFC. So we obviously want people that encounter BDK who want to make an iPhone app with it to have examples of how to integrate it into their apps. So that's definitely one of the purposes of the iOS app. But additionally, the people that might enjoy the example wallet are people looking to just explore BDK 1.0 or 2.0 and experiment with all the new features. People looking to fork, so developers wanting to build on or fork this project, using it as a solid starting point to create their own wallet, or other Bitcoin related apps, or developers looking to add a specific feature or idea to what already exists in the codebase. And another group would be testers. So Bitcoiners interested in an iOS test wallet that supports networks like Signet and Testnet. This could be developers testing their own app with this app. I personally use our example wallet to test out BDK FFI and the new code we write and the new features we integrate. It helps me have a really good feedback loop on what it's like for a client app to integrate some of the new features or functions that we've released. And also, not just that they work, but that they feel right. So I tried to censor this in case any kids are watching out there. But as a library developer, this hits home because you want to understand the downstream users and build with and for them. So this is just an iPhone app developer, and just caught my attention. This was 2 days ago that this was posted. And he's talking about an Apple API that they use, and it's still very glitchy for very basic use cases that he's sure that it wouldn't be as glitchy if they were dog fooding or testing the API in just a basic app context. And so Apple may or may not be doing that, but this is something I can help avoid as a maintainer of BDK FFI by having a client app that I use the API in and kind of finding these bugs, these awkward things in the API and hopefully remediating them before developers ever find them and get understandably frustrated if they aren't fixed for a long time. And I've actually had a lot of times where I'll write some code on BDK FFI, it compiles, it looks good, test pass, and then I generate the Swift bindings and test it out in the iOS app, and something just doesn't work or feel quite right. So then I'm able to reevaluate and reassess the new code, and I just feel like that's a really nice feedback loop. Another set of people that might want to test are people even just new to Bitcoin that want to play with a wallet and get comfortable with Bitcoin without having to do that on mainnet. And for myself, I also want to like using the app as I'm testing and using it on a daily basis, basically. So I put time into how it works and feels. And so let's just touch quickly on the basics of how someone building an iPhone app does that and how we did that with our example wallet. So one of the easy foundations for creating a great iPhone app is just to use the Apple Human Interface Guidelines as a baseline for the UI and the UX. The HIG contains guidance and best practices that can help someone design a great experience for Apple platforms. So most people will use Bitcoin primarily on mobile devices, so focusing on a smooth and intuitive mobile experience is essential. So the aim of this was to leverage the power of BDK and just make a true iOS native app, intentionally made to feel as natural on the platform as possible, as natural to a Bitcoiner as possible, and leverage Apple's built-in capabilities and also the features that users have just come to expect, like light and dark mode, dynamic type, fluid gestures and animations, and other iOS native components that enhance the experience for users. And we don't just do this to make the app just look nice, but when an app feels native to the platform, it makes even complicated tasks, which you can definitely run into with Bitcoin, seem straightforward. Conversely, if the app doesn't feel like it belongs on the platform, even simple tasks can feel way more difficult than they should or need to. And then I personally believe that as more people use BDK, we will see more apps that have good UI and good UX because BDK is already taking care of all the important features of a wallet. So you're not like using a bunch of time writing that from scratch over months and months, which frees the app developer to focus on what they're really good at, their specific viewpoint, and how the app feels. So a key focus area of the app was creating an onboarding experience that gets users into the app with minimal friction. I was really focused on preventing the user from feeling overwhelmed or stuck when they first open the app. I wanted to get them onboarded feeling confident and excited with momentum to continue using the app. So if you're just new to the app, not wanting to customize anything, you can just tap Create Wallet and get going with same defaults. I streamlined the onboarding to one screen, set the default network to MutinyNet, and made creating or importing a wallet a one-tap action. So once you get into the app, it's pretty simple from there. I defaulted to MutinyNet, which is a Bitcoin network like testnet, but using sign blocks. It's a custom signet that comes with its own faucet and block explorer. And its features also include SegWit and Taproot support, 30-second block times. What's nice about it too is when you use it, it also allows you to interoperate with other apps that are also using MutinyNet. So you could have a Lightning app, a BDK iOS app, and like a Fedimint app, and you could send Bitcoin between all of them on MutinyNet, which is pretty nice. Also, the app defaults to BIP86 descriptor templates, but the app supports mnemonics, descriptors, and watch-only XPubs. The home screen offers a mix of things you'd regularly see, like balance and transactions. So the iOS app offers multiple balance formats, some custom ones that make sense to me. So there's the custom format, normal Bitcoin format, sats format, dollar format, and I'm sure we'll add other options in the future too. For ease of use on mobile devices, the send and receive actions are positioned at the bottom of the screen instead of middle or top, so that they're within easy reach of a user's thumb. To keep the design minimal, these actions are represented by icons that make sense to me for a mobile wallet. So show a QR code would be like trying to receive, that's in the bottom left. Scan a QR code, which would be for sending, that's in the bottom right. And rather than adding or only having text, just seems to make the interface cleaner and more efficient. There's this great quote, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. And so I'm always open to feedback if I've made things too simple or minimal. I'd like to highlight one of the features I was most excited about in BDK 1.0, which was the ability to inspect script pub keys during wallet sync, because I could immediately imagine in my head how great that could look in a wallet. And one of the reasons for that is there's this concept called the halting problem. And the halting problem is the problem of determining whether the program will finish running or continue to run forever. And so if you think about it this way, if you've ever used an app that you can run into this problem in the UI or UX where you see an infinite spinner and have no idea really what's going on. Like, is it still refreshing? Is it stuck? If it's stuck, why exactly is it stuck? So the ability in BDK to view the inspected SPKs lets you kind of see what's happening. It's almost like you can see into the wallet as it's syncing. And there's two types of syncing in BDK. There's a full scan and a sync. So the full scan is an operation that aims to build a complete picture of a wallet's UTXOs from scratch with no prior data or knowledge about the wallet. So I use full scan in BDK iOS for things like when you import a wallet, and also have a manual option in settings if you want to full scan your wallet. A sync is a related operation, which can just be thought of as catching up on the latest things that have happened on the chain since the last full scan or sync. Sync makes a lot of sense if the list of addresses given out is known. Sync is also a smaller and more optimal operation than a full scan, and should often be used in cases after an initial scan has already been performed. And so I use sync for everything after that full scan has already been done. So for receiving, I implemented visual formatting for Bitcoin addresses based on the Bitcoin design guide. By clearly presenting the address in a more digestible format, users are encouraged to review the entire address, which can help a lot by possibly preventing mistakes during transactions. For sending, I've seen a similar send flow in a lot of my favorite wallet apps. I think it's a great approach that I wanted to stay consistent with since it creates a clean and intuitive experience. So the first thing that'll happen is you paste or scan an address, and then you input the amount, you choose a fee, and then you send the transaction. So right here, I'm calling out to mempool space for fees, which you can select from low to medium to high. And then I'm using the transaction builder in BDK to construct, sign, and broadcast the transaction. BDK works great if you want your app to interact with hardware wallets too. So we showcase some of that in the iOS app. Here we are creating a wallet using an XPub from our cold wallet, which is the cold card Q device. In the app, we can now generate receive addresses and monitor our wallet. And for the cold card device, we're using the cold card Edge firmware because it's the firmware that supports BIP86. Another cool feature we can leverage over NFC with something like the cold card Q in BDK iOS is verifying addresses. So a user can verify an address over NFC with the cold card Q. BDK is open source, so it might not be as much of a concern as a closed source wallet, but it's still a nice feature to have and showcase. The reason this feature is nice, though, is because failure to verify address ownership can leave you vulnerable to attacks through a compromised mobile or desktop wallet that might be displaying addresses not generated by your cold card. So the Q has the ability to verify that a Bitcoin address presented over NFC is actually part of a wallet on the cold card. Now, how this works in BDK iOS is it's passing the address data to the cold card from the iOS app, and then the cold card will then recognize a Bitcoin address and immediately begin verifying if the address is part of the wallet that the cold card knows about. And if it is, then you'll see a screen with the information of the verified address. If not, then you'll see a screen with the information that it's an unknown address. Another NFC feature is a newer one that Apple opened up. iOS 17.4 includes APIs that support contactless transactions. This is particularly interesting for Bitcoin wallets on iOS because it makes iPhone to iPhone Bitcoin payments over NFC really nice. So you can pass a Bitcoin address or a BIP21 URI over NFC using just a standard tap transaction. So it basically allows your iPhone app to emulate a contactless card. Previously, you kind of could only read, and now you can also respond. And it uses this card session API to perform a protocol communication with an NFC reader, receiving and responding to app dues in your app. And card session supports host card emulation transactions for in-person payments. This feature, as of today, isn't merged into the main branch, but BDK did a proof of concept with this in the iOS app the past few months, and were approved by Apple App Review to release a version of the app that has this feature working. The only downside is it's EEA only right now. Short term, some more things to look forward to that I'd like to add. Around the corner would be more clients. So Rob just did a tech talk about Kyoto, integrating compact block filters and wallets. He has his fork of BDK iOS with that implemented. There's also an additional branch on the main BDK Swift example wallet repo that you can find, done by a contributor named Rubens, that we're about to start migrating into the main branch over the coming weeks. More paths would be great, so I wanted to default to BIP86 template, but we should also probably support BIP84 as an option too, obviously. More hardware wallets like Portal and more like that. And then App Store, so the app is available on test flight right now, but we should probably just put it in the App Store as well. So it's really cool to see how much BDK unlocks directly, just great wallets, and then also indirectly great UX that can be had with BDK, great NFC integrations that both developers and users will greatly benefit from. So we will keep adding those to BDK FFI, BDK Swift, and the BDK iOS wallet. So thanks for watching, and reach out to me anytime with questions. Thanks.